basically read every book I can get on happiness, because like for me it's such a curious topic. I was very in a difficult place from 14 to 18, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna read all the books on that and actually follow this advice. Now that's like, one thing is knowing it, the other thing is like implementing it in your life. And I really saw that it made a big impact. If you like, there's a lot of books that talk about baseline happiness, right? So if you measure from 1 to 10, and maybe I saw that in the past I was like a 5. Like my normal day was a 5, and then of course it fluctuates, and you have like good days and bad days, and that's like everyone, no? Like something bad happens to me, I'm gonna be fucking sad, like obviously, you know. But with all of these habits, and this I want to like help you also with this, I can, like normally like the last 17, 18 years, it's been mostly like a 9 if I measure it. Like I normally wake up and I'm like, oh, I'm actually a 9 happy. It's pretty cool. And it really helps also if you have a shitty day, because you're like, oh, I'll just go, like if I have a bad day, I was like, oh, I'll just go to sleep earlier, because normally I'll wake up and my brain will normally wake up as a 9 again, right? So like that really makes life easier, and it's habits, and it's doing the right things. So I want to share with you as much as I can. And obviously, every one of you knows a lot about this topic. Not everyone's trying to, be a bit happier in life because it makes life easier. So it should be a very interactive thing. No, I will just share some things that helped me, and maybe you can relate, and maybe and it should be very interactive. So really, everyone has some things. So this actually you didn't mention X, and this really helps me. Please always bring it on. We should be like a brainstorming session together on how can we be slightly or a lot happier, because who do you think? It technically it makes like every time if I talk to some people who already achieved a lot, like I was like last September, for example, I spent a week with Richard Branson on his island, and he's also like this. He's also reading every book on happiness, and he said he was always like this in the past, right? Because he says it's not that you become successful and then you become happy. It's the happiness that brings the success, right? So I really one of the things I want to disencourage you from is like, don't ever, and this is really important, don't ever be like, okay, I'm gonna be unhappy now and work super hard, and then when I sell the company, because many of us are company owners, right? When I sell the company, then I'm gonna be happy. It doesn't work, right? Because the brain learns, right? The brain learns its normal state, and it takes a while to change this. And if you're in an unhappy state for a long time, you can have the best things happening to you. You'll maybe be happy for 2 or 3 days, and you go back to your default. And there's like cell memory. So it's something very important. And also for health, like if you're actually in a good mood, I forgot the number, but like every second, billions and billions of cells duplicate in our body. And if you're in a good mood in this moment, they actually duplicate in a healthier way. And this is science. You can prove it, no? If you're in a sad phase, you actually we're more likely to get unhealthy cells or something bad. So you really want to check on that. For me, I love certain quotes I love, and this is one that really impacted me, is the most important decision you make in your life is to be in a good mood. Because it makes everything easier, right? Like if I would go with Mella, with his uncle's company, I go to a meeting with investors and they thought about investing in the company. If I go in with a smile and I'm like in a good mood, it's already more likely that it's gonna work out well. If you meet your family and you actually come with a smile, you have a chance that you actually cheer them up, and it's gonna be a more pleasant thing. Or if you go on a date or anything, it just makes life slightly easier, right? So one of the things that's like, I think every one of us knows, is that there's a high correlation between gratitude and feeling good, feeling at bliss. So we all know that, but it's easy to forget, it's hard to implement it every day. And for me, one thing that helps, but there's like 1,000 products. So I use this since six years, where I write down every morning like 3 things that I'm grateful for. Right, so that's how it looks. Can you read them back or not? If not, I'll read it out. All right, so it's very simple, and like you can do it on your phone, you can take any piece of paper, so you don't have to buy any book for that. But really it's slightly better if you do it with handwritten, but both works. So you wake up, and first of all, you have to really understand, like, the better you know yourself, the easier all of these things become. So for me, it was very easy to understand, like, to figure out that I'm not at all a morning person. So like, typically, I would wake up grumpy, and then the longer the day goes, the more happy I am. Like, Patrick can tell, like, right away, if you go partying, I'm always like, no, let's not go home yet. You know, like, life is amazing. So I have a lot of energy in the night, but I would normally wake up in a bit like, oh, okay, I'm like, why? Like, you know, it's too early. So if I actually have to put myself and right away write down 3 things I'm grateful for, what do? I train. It's like going to the gym. No, I train the muscle of like, oh yeah, let's put yourself into gratitude mode right away. And I try to always find 3 different things in 6 years, so it's getting slightly harder, but it's good. And then you write down 3 things that would make today amazing, for example. And then in the night you can do the same habit of like 3 amazing things that happened today, which hopefully later we write down that we had an amazing dinner, amazing party together. But this is like something that's a very simple habit to start with. And I would like to invite you all to take like 1 minute. I think nearly everyone has a piece of paper and a pen. If the people who don't, take your phone. But just write down 3 things that you're grateful for. And then you see how you feel after this. And the thing is really to make it a habit. Like first thing in the morning, write down 3 things you're grateful for. And now listen to yourself if you actually feel slightly better than before. Like realizing that, okay, I actually have things I'm grateful for. And it's like, with these things like meditation. Like some days it's very easy to find 3 things you're grateful for. And some days you really struggle, like, no, I don't want to do this stupid shit of writing down 3 things. Those are the days you actually need it more. Right? It's like the same with meditation. The days when you actually don't feel like meditating because you have so many things going on, you might want to do it most. Maybe 2 people can share 1 thing that they wrote down, and then also give one habit, because we're going to talk first about habits and then about meaning and purpose of life that helps them. You want to go, for example? Like what are things that help you to be more balanced in life? Reiki sessions? All right. Yeah, exactly. I also did those in Bali. That's like mindfulness in general, no? Like makes life. Yeah. It's also one thing if you, one of the books of Tim Ferriss, where he just looked at 500 billionaires and like, okay, what do these people have in common? All of them had some kind of mindfulness practice. No, some of them meditated, some of them did Reiki sessions, some of them went for a conscious walk, some of them were reading in the morning, but like all of them have certain habits, and that really there's a clear correlation. No, it really helps. Maybe one more person can share something that helps for.
Yeah, affirmations. I did it a lot, and I still do it. A lot of affirmations.
Mm-hmm.
I am happy. Yeah, I am balanced. I am rich. Whatever.
Yeah.
This is definitely a big thing.
Yeah.
The affirmations.
Yeah. One affirmation that changed my life a lot 4 or 5 years ago. That Patrick told me is time for you is in abundance. Because I was like, yeah, but I don't have enough time for all these things, and now I feel very sure about like, yes, time is in abundance for me. Sometimes I feel I even have too much time right now. Like I'm like, oh, I have so much time. I have so many things I have to do now. But yeah, time is fully in abundance. And if you actually repeat this to yourself and write it down in the mornings, that really helps. Right. Then, now because the first part is about the habits, there are certain things that do increase happiness. And one of the first books I read on the topic was Happiness by Design. Another good book I recommend is like Solve for Happy, Man's Search for Meaning, which actually I was scared of reading because I thought it's going to be a very depressing, sad book. But actually, if you read it, it's one of the most beautiful books ever. So I really recommend for purpose, reading Man's Search for Meaning, Solve for Happy. This one I'll quickly summarize to you. So happiness by design is, first of all, learning to know yourself. What are the habits that make you unhappy? What are the habits that make you happy? And then design your life that you would do them more often, right? So in my case, a very easy example, it makes me so happy to play beach volleyball, to play tennis, to go to the gym, to do any kind of sport. Like sports is guaranteed to make me happier. So how can I design my life to make it easier to do sports all the time? So in Barcelona, in my motorcycle that I have, or in the car, I always have a ready packed gym bag or sports bag with running shoes, which I can also use for football. They have everything ready. So whenever I feel like doing it, I don't have to go like, oh, I have to now go up, go pack everything, too lazy for this. You make the habit super easy to actually do, right? Or like design your life for this. If it's hard for me, maybe the next slide for this. If it's hard for me to wake up and pick up my phone and then leave it on flight mode, right? Because I'm like, oh, actually, I'm waiting for this news from the investors or this like important thing. I want to see right away what it is. And if you put your phone as the alarm clock in your room, you pick it up right away, and then it's actually, you're actually a little bit tempted to already go out of flight mode and check it. So there again, design your life for happiness, no? Everyone here, I'm very sure, can afford a 20 euro alarm clock, like an old-fashioned one, right? They sell it everywhere. And put this one to your room and charge your phone in the living room. And actually, and you can make a competition of the longer you can stay in flight mode. Like if you do 1 hour in the morning, you stay in flight mode, 2 hours, depends whenever you wake up, no? But it really helps a lot to not have the easy dopamine rush in the morning and it changes your day, no? The other thing is like, and that's the most obvious, I think everyone knows this, but make your bed in the morning, because when your brain is already won. Like you completed your first task, so you did something already, bam, you come home to a made bed also, which is nice, but you actually already achieved something and you started the day with being productive. One of the slides I put here is Cultra. Is like a Spanish company in Barcelona with a German founder. He's one of my best friends here in Barcelona. And for me, it's always, we're all very busy. So now we're like gonna say, but I don't have time for all of these habits, for like meditating in the morning, for doing sport once, twice a day. And I was like, okay, look at Timo. Like, they are like 580 people now, growing crazy fast. He wakes up. I gave him this book, the 5-minute journal. He wakes up, he writes his notes, he meditates. He would go play 1 hour of tennis every morning of a weekday and play 1 hour of beach volleyball every day after work. So if he has the time for this, or like if, Elon Musk, Richard Branson, if they have the time for this, we also do. It's just being efficient in the moment. But in general, like you can really find what was habits for yourself. Another thing that's very important for me is like, don't do the habits, but don't search for happiness in a active way, and allow yourself to feel all the emotions that you have, right? So if I have a day when I'm feeling very, very sad, it's actually so healthy to sit down for like 10 minutes or 1 hour and just listen to your body and what it's trying to tell you, and embrace the emotion and be with that emotion. And it's actually, after a while, first it sucks, but after a while actually it feels beautiful to feel sad. If you're with them in the moment, no? If you feel angry, be with it, no? Always do your habits that go for it, but be soft to yourself. That's one thing that I have to learn a lot. Like, what's one of my biggest learnings? But like, I always try to achieve 1,000 things, and like currently one of my current struggles is like I feel like I'm not working on big enough projects, and then this could create unhappiness. And I'm like, no, just be soft with yourself, and then these things are gonna come. But allow yourself to be very feminine with yourself in those moments, and allow yourself to flow. Also, maybe like we can also share 2 more things, like what are habits for you? No, because it's, like I really want to learn from you. Like, what are things that you learned for yourself that make you, yeah?
I think one of the biggest ones you can try to implement is like weekly and or a monthly review. And what I personally do in those, especially in the monthly reviews, is I actually have a running list of what I call my happiness island. And I basically just collect moments, situations from the past where I really felt happy. Just do a running list, okay? And I always add to this, every month I add to this. I have the same for unhappiness, what made me kind of unhappy. Add to this, add to this, add to this. And then the same with achievement and unachievement. When did I actually get stuff done and didn't? And what I do is every month I read through that and remind myself about what makes me happy, what makes me unhappy, and what makes me achieve stuff and not achieve stuff. And I combine this with reviewing my values. And then I have a really good understanding that happiness is actually just living in line with my values. And this happiness list is kind of a combination or examples of the times where I lived in line with those. And then I go ahead and try to think, okay, what needs to change on a daily or weekly level in terms of, hey, what do I need to change in my schedule, or what do I need to do, what do I need to spend more time on, or schedule time for, let's say, some hobbies I've neglected, or some things that where I've neglected these values. And then, if you do this regularly, you never really get into these phases where you don't feel happy, because you're always making sure you're reviewing if you live in line with your values. I think that is a really crucial habit as well.
That was a perfect answer. That, you know, happiness is not just found. You're like, okay, I'm gonna be happy now. Like, you actually do your things, and the more you write down, that really helps. Like for me also, there was 2 things I learned. I think many of you know that like 4 years ago with Meller, I had a burnout, and then you actually like you write down the things that give you energy. Right? For me, it's like being surrounded by people that I love gives me energy every time. And then you write down also the things like energy balance, the things that drain your energy. And then all of a sudden you see, like, if you actually do this for 2 weeks, you will see a lot of things that you didn't think that would drain you so much energy, but you see like correlations going up, and like, okay, maybe I should really try to cut those things. For me, it's like the last thing I cut it like 3 weeks ago was counting. Because I always realized that like this actually drains me so much energy, like a -10, no? And I was like, I can really hire someone to help me do that and to fully get it out, because it's like, yeah, it depends on you, no? Like really find out the things that really are energy drainers to the max. And sometimes it can be, unfortunately, sometimes it can be humans that are energy drainers, and then check like, yeah, okay, is there a chance that I should maybe not meet that friend so much if he always puts me down every single time about how difficult life is, you know, like the typical, you know, people in Munich. Like, I'm from Munich, so I can say that. I'm kidding. Okay. The other thing is like, the other book that really helped me is like The Power of Now, is like, be as much as you can in the present moment. And because there's very few problems in the present moment, right? So if you always think about the future, you're actually gonna end up with anxiety, because you always live in the future. Or if you always live in the past, you're more likely to get depression, right? So really try to be here and now, like being like, now I try to be fully here the whole day and having meaningful conversations with everyone I meet here. And I don't think about what I'm gonna do tomorrow or how was yesterday. And the next thing is like I'll skip one slide. But the next thing is really like, be kind to yourself, because we all try to be kind to others, but we have this inner voice, and the inner voice is actually what our parents told us, right? When we were like in an unconscious mind from 2 to 5 years old, And some things that were not good still become our inner voice, like to always push yourself to the next, or like, so like sometimes we are very hard to ourselves for those reasons, and try to always forgive yourself for the past and others, of course. Maybe an easy example, like the past can be a short past. So this morning, I woke up and I was like, okay, I'm not feeling fully fit yet. I'll just sleep 1 more hour and go 1 more hour, you know. And then past Chris was sometimes go like, but no, you didn't wake up and you didn't like perform all the things you should have done right away. And sometimes 10 years ago, these things could have dragged me down the whole day because like I started bad and I was like, even the things that happened 2 hours ago, I would still be angry at myself for those things. And like, forgive yourself, no? Like, it's very easy. And like now you're in this present moment, and that's all that really counts. And maybe another thing for gratefulness, a good example that really helps. Like the reason why, when Patrick asked me first, like, Chris, why are you like the happiest person I know? Like, why are you constantly, and I'm not always happy, I have like 3 shitty days every month, I would say, no? But why you're like constantly super happy? And for me, it's like how my brain works is like I would go to an elevator here in the hotel, and if it works, I'm actually, I always go like, oh, it actually will be amazing if it works, no? And then it actually brings me up and I'm like, wow, I don't have to go to the 8th floor and walk up the stairs. So most people, they would go there to the elevator and they would expect it to work. And if it breaks down, God forbid, they have to wake up, they have to walk up and they would get really angry. But if you actually train your brain that every time something happens, that every time something actually works, you always get a happiness push from that. That makes life much easier because you're like, oh yeah, the elevator works. And my house has an elevator, so every day, at least 4 times I go up and down, I'm like, okay, it's nice, it actually works, right? So those are the things that really help. And always framing things that was the best thing that could have possibly happened to me. And this is very tricky if bad things happen to you. But you always frame it like, no, this was actually like feeling kind of like guided. So 2 things that my sport teacher taught me, and I was doing my Abitur in Bavaria, was like happiness correlates a lot with like having a sense of feeling guided, that it was actually for the best what happened there, and being able to be self-determined in your life, right? That the more you can choose your own path of life, and if you feel like you're in the driver's seat of your life, that really helps, right? So try to also have that, to have your life as much as you can self-determined. All right, let's come to something very nice in Instagram. Okay, we all know this, but maybe you should repeat it sometimes. Don't ever compare yourself with other people on Instagram, right? It's like, and I think everyone had this. Like, for me, actually, a lot of times when I have a very happy day, I don't post because I don't have time. I'm just enjoying life. And when you actually are like, I have actually a more unhappy day, I'm like, I can just repost the things that like the video I took 1 week ago. Now I actually have time, nothing to do. So typically, actually, if I post more, it's actually I don't have a perfect day, right? So don't ever compare yourself to what others are trying to portray on social media. The only one you should compare yourself to is you, right? That's the only one. And try to get a bit more conscious, a bit more peaceful, a bit more, whatever you work on, and try to compete with yourself, like with Chris from 1 week ago, and try to run faster, do better sports, whatever flows for you. Meditation is also something that definitely is helpful because you get into a phase where you can control your thoughts, right? And I didn't believe it for a long time, and now when I see it, it's actually such a super tool, and it's very hard to get into it because the first 5 times you meditate, what happens? Nothing. And that's the tricky part, right? Because you have to actually stick with it, and then the result is huge. For me, how I tricked myself into this, because I'm a person, if 5 times something happens, I would stop. So I know this, right? So like knowing yourself well really helps. So like I know that the first 5 times will do nothing, and I know I'm going to stop. So how can I trick myself into actually doing it? I signed up to a Buddhist monastery, and I was like, I'm going without any experience. They'll ask me, like, do you have experience? I'm like, yeah, I meditate all the time. Bullshit, no? And And I had no experience. I had never meditated. And I was like, I'm just gonna go do a 10-day silent retreat. And you know, I love to talk. So like 10 days I couldn't talk. So imagine. And you actually push yourself fully into it. You're like, okay, I cannot get out here. So actually, you stick with it in this case until you have the benefits. Because if you're 10 days there, you have the benefits for sure, right? So if you're like me in this, trick yourself into it. Be like, okay, I'm not going to do this 5 times, which won't work. I'll just do the full-on thing, and that's something that definitely helps. And another thing is like, the better you know yourself, the easier you can come up with tools that help you, right? So like, understand your brain as well as you can. For me, something that helped here was like, I read 8 years ago in the Miller office, I read about ayahuasca. And I got more and more interested. It's like a plant from a shamanic that the shamans give you in the rainforest, and it makes you really for 8 hours be very conscious how your subconsciousness works. Right? You connect with your thoughts of your consciousness. So I got very curious about it. I was 2 years Googling like, can you die from that? Like how bad are the consequences? And then I was like, okay, I feel ready. And those things really help. No, but again, you can go there with meditation. It's just a quicker path, but meditation will bring you the same to understanding what your subconsciousness is doing. Before giving the speech, because happiness is just my passion, but normally I give speeches on marketing, where I can give you exact details. So I was looking for a lot of advice and help. So for example, I posted like a Instagram story, I'll talk about happiness, give me your feedback, and I had like, I think, 120 people texting me their advice, and like I wish I could share it all, but it would break it. But a lot of things that I put is actually their experiences, what helped them. Who of you met Christoph from Contra? He was here yesterday. I met him I talked on my boat. So what he told me is like what helps for him in happiness, and this can be true for some, not for all, but for him, he was like include this in the slides because this might help a lot of people, is to not be in the boring comfort zone, but to go push yourself slightly, right? Push yourself slightly and go into the learning zone, growth zone, learning zone. Don't go too far, like don't push yourself into the panic zone where you push yourself too much, but actually being slightly out of the comfort zone, slightly on the edge at all times is very, very beautiful, right? For me, for example, I never talked about happiness my whole life, so it's actually slightly above my comfort zone to do that, but it feels good always. So anything, like in business, try to always, aim a little bit bigger, and we're gonna go bigger. Like bigger can also mean like working less hours, but getting bigger outcome. No, that can also be like aiming bigger is like how can I achieve this in 6 hours per day? That's also aiming way bigger. All right. A couple of slides we can skip because you already know a lot of things. So this is something for, I have a slide in Spanish for our Spanish people here, but I will explain you quickly. One of the books that also helped me a lot. I'm not a morning person, so I don't do the 5 a.m. club, right? But you can do it. It also says in the book. You can do that anytime that you want, right? So it can be for me the 8 a.m. club. But to get up and right away write down 3 things you're grateful for, and then having the habit of the first hour 20 minutes meditation. And for me, again, I love to trick myself. So actually what I do on my meditation app, I use my iPad for that, to not have my phone, but I put 5 minutes. And I'm always like, okay, I always have time for 5 minutes. And once you do the 5 minutes, you always want to do more, right? I mean, you're like, oh, actually I want to do more. But I always lie to myself. The same with Patrick, if you go to the gym, I always tell myself you're just going to go to the spa, right? And then we're aware like we actually train, no? But you try to trick yourself and like, I'll just do 5 minutes. And then, so 20 minutes of meditation, 20 minutes of moving, and 20 minutes of reading. And for reading, I brought you a cool present, which we will see in a bit, about books that really impacted me and really helped me. One other thing is like try, and this doesn't have to be true for everyone, but try to figure out what made you very happy when you were a child. And for me, just thinking about that, I found a lot of things that I should do more often, and dance and sing as much as you can. Like the happy soul sings and dances a lot, like sing under the shower or whatever, but it's something that really does help. And if you have, so one of the things that is like, if you actually have a completely shitty day, but you really want to be in a good mood for 1 or 2 hours. Like you still want to work with your sadness, but you really want to put yourself in a good mood because you need it. Like you have a very important meeting with investors coming up or whatever, client meeting. And you really, you know, have a shitty day, but you really want to be in a good mood for 2 hours. And then you're going to go back to default. It's actually, and this is like such a weird advice, but you actually go to a mirror or like this, and you actually do a stupid smile, right, like this. And you actually try to keep it like for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, because this will actually release serotonin, because our brain thinks, he's happy. Like, it's not a long-term happiness hack, right? But if you really need, like, for certain things to be actually in a good mood for 2 hours, this will actually do the trick for you. It's a quick-term thing. All right, now a lot of habits, and again, I'm really happy to hear all your habits. Everyone wants to share something, always raise your hand. It's interactive. Or also later, come to me and tell me what habits work for you. Now talking a little bit about meaning, right? Because habits are cool, but if you don't have a deeper meaning to things and purpose, that actually also becomes tricky after a while. And this, again, for me, what I saw, what works for myself is like the meaning of life, for me, is to give meaning of life, right? So to give meaning, there's a very cool blog article about it. The meaning of life is to give meaning to the moments. The blog article is called, if you can Google it, The Meaning of Life is a Ham Sandwich. Because he explains that he writes it, and he explains that he came to a conclusion that the meaning of life is to give meaning to the moments. And while he writes the blog, he's like, I'm actually going to reward myself after writing this blog with a ham sandwich. Right? So he's like, this actually gives meaning to this moment of doing this. So having goals set, and now we're going to put bigger goals than that, right? So having goals set is something that helps everyone I talk to about this a lot. So try to have the following exercise, okay? So I'm going to quickly explain you 2 things, and then we do the exercise together. And by the way, breathwork also brings happiness. Like whoever was here this morning, like doing connected breaths in the morning and just like listen to your breath, and it's kind of an easier meditation, I would say. Something that really does a lot. Okay, so for finding a little bit of more purpose and meaning, there's a very cool exercise. So we're going to have growth goals. So growth goals, one example could be, for me, I'm still like hoping in foot volley, which many of you see that I love playing. I'm still hoping to be in the maybe top 2% of people played in Germany, which is not a lot, which actually is good. Or maybe even play like a World Cup for Germany, because again, it's not a big sport in it. So it's like a growth goal of getting very good in it and getting to the level, right? That would be like an example of a growth goal. You want to grow into a certain role, and it would be a goal to grow into it. Then you have contribution goal. So contribution is like you have a goal, like you write down a goal which would help society, right? So like something that would really help the people around you or at a bigger scale, but like how can you contribute to the others? And the last one is an experience goal. Right? So it's like a goal of like doing certain activities that give you an experience. Could be, in my example, traveling the world for six months and seeing places that are more difficult to actually see, right? To go into deep travel and having this experience. So from the list, I would really like that everyone tries to think, when the goals you write down, try to have some of them that are growth goals, some of them contribution goals, and some of them are experience goals. And here it goes, okay? I started this when I was 25, and I just decided, I think a founder from the US told me about it. He's like, plan a little bit your life out of things you want to, like goals you want to have. Like put yourself some goals. So I was 25 at that time, and I was like, okay, I think if nothing goes wrong, I should live until 65 minimum, so I'll do until 65. I feel like I can probably live much longer, but just to have it with this. So I did it 25, 26, 27. So for every year, I made a list, and I put all the years that I wanted to have a goal in. And then I wrote down something I want to have achieved by the time I'm 25, something I want to have achieved by the time I'm 26, and so on. So this was only like nine years ago. And so I should have by now achieved 9 of these things, or experienced or achieved by none of these things. And I'm already at 20, right? Because like just by writing it down is like kind of like visualizing it and affirming it. So that really helped. So for me, that's something that's I think is the most important exercise I've ever done in my life, is actually being here, putting this list and putting myself something for every year, what I want to do. We won't probably have time to fully finish it, but maybe put a piece of paper and start and putting the numbers down, and all the things that are very obvious, put them down. No? So I'm going to give you 2 or 3 minutes, and you can start the list, and then obviously later, after this, we have a break before the dinner. You can finish it, or tomorrow morning. But start a little bit and try to really include growth goals, contribution goals, where you help society, and experience goals. All right, maybe we'll do like 1 more minute, and then the rest you can happily continue later or tomorrow. But try to really finish it, because if I see you again in 10 years, which I'm sure I will see many of you again in 10 years, I would actually be shocked if you only achieved 10 of those things. It should be way more. And you're going to see. It's actually crazy how well it works. And for me, there were some things I wrote down for. I was like, if I'm optimistic, at 48, I could be there. And because I wrote down, it already happened.
How abstract can it be?
It's your list, whatever you want. But I try to be very abstract. No, sorry. I thought abstract like dreaming big. So dream big. More precise is better. So sorry, more precise, yeah. But it really depends. If you like now you have just an abstract idea, doing it is better than having it done is better than, you know. So whatever flows, but. All right. So now there's the last 2 concepts that I want to share with you. So maybe this I'll share. It doesn't have to apply to everyone, but sometimes you feel like stuck and like you're not working on big enough project, and actually brings you happiness to go out of it and go more into your learning and growth zone. So I had this recently, and I talked. I was like in at a conference like this, but in Brazil. And I talked with 2 friends, and they were like, oh yeah, we actually have this very cool method to dream big and to think really big. And I want to quickly share you, so you can do this at home as an exercise. For me, that was a huge game changer. It's like this. You write down things that you want to spread a lot in the world, or in the terms of money. Like in the money goal would be like you accumulate as much as you can. So like, for example, let's write down love, knowledge, and so on, okay? So here, there will be like, in this case, would be like, I want to spread as much love with the world as possible. And this, again, how you define love can be compassion with people, can be helping people. Like, how do you, in your life, how do you make the biggest impact of spreading the most amount of love in the world? So he made me think about this, and then it was like, here, that's you alone, okay? So me, how can I have the biggest impact here in spreading the most amount of love? However you define it, with other people in the world. Same with knowledge. How can I spread the most amount of knowledge with people who I care about in the world? And this one is a bit different. It's like money. This like purely, if you purely think of money, it's like how can I have the most amount of money in my bank account in the end of my life? Okay, so optimizing for this, and also can be like money can also be a good thing, because if you have a lot, you can donate a lot, no? So you can actually impact the right causes. But obviously, I was lucky to meet a couple of billionaires. None of them is happier than us by having the money, right? There's a lot of pain that comes with it. It really, like, you actually, it's like, they said like it's actually sad that not everyone can be a billionaire, because then they actually see and understand that it's not the solution, right? But for this exercise, you try to do it, right? And you can just take a picture and then do it at home. But then what Jordan was the guy who did with me, what he forced me was like, okay, now you have written 3 things down here. Now, 10x that, okay? Think 10 times bigger of what would you actually do if you had to now spread 10 times more love, how you define it, or knowledge, or you have whatever amount you wrote down here, 10x that. Okay? So that was the second one, and I wrote down again all my pieces. And then he was like, okay, now together. And by this, he explained me, now I'm giving you 1,000 employees, which I pay for, but they're going to help you to achieve these goals. So you have an amazing COO who manages these people, so you don't have to worry about it. You have 1,000 people who help you to work on these goals. How big would you dream? How big do you dream now? Okay, with 1,000 people. And then of course you dream very big. Like, okay, if I have 1,000 people, this can be way more. I can share much more knowledge. I can share much more love. Okay. And then I finished this, and I was like, okay, now I'm dreaming very big. And he said, okay, the last one. 1,000 years. So now you have 1,000 people who help you to achieve whatever mission you have, whatever you want to impact the world or help. But you also have 1,000 years to achieve that. And now you write down, how big do you dream here? How big do you dream here? How big do you dream here? And then what you write down typically should be something very, very big, right? And then he was like, look, there's people achieving it. So if it's something that you're interested in, this creates you happiness to work on those goals, then yeah, work on this, right? Aim big. And if you only make it half this way, okay, still pretty good, right? So a lot of people who brought so much impact in the world, and it doesn't have to be at all money driven, no? But like Da Vinci, the knowledge he shared with the world is crazy, because he dreamed very, very big. So this knowledge is like an exercise that for me helped me a lot, and everyone who wants to see my answers, just later come to me and I can show you. I have it on my phone. So those are the projects that I want to be working on, because this brings me out of my comfort zone, and getting out of my comfort zone is, again, something that does contribute to happiness. But again, this is just like putting, the meaning of life is putting meaning to it, no? So like that's something that helped me for that. And definitely all the habits. And for habits, I have one last present for you. So for habits, of course, there's like so many books that explain a lot of habits. Like for example, $1 Million Habits, like 27 habits that make you more in balance, that help you to be more productive. So there's 1,000 books. So you have to take a picture of this. What you actually take a picture of is this, because so what I did for you as a service, there's summaries you can buy, and it's like 60 euros per summary. So I was like, okay, it's actually quite a lot for a PDF. So if I buy it, I might as well share it with people who I know are gonna appreciate it. So I was like four summaries of like, one is like the 50 most read self-help books in the world, and they're always summarized in one page, one almost amazing infographics. So if you already read them and want to re-go over them, that really helps. Or if you actually want to get the key concept without having to go through a whole book. So I uploaded them to WeTransfer, and here they are. So if you have an iPhone, you just scan it, and then you can open it in books, and you have it. With Android, I don't know how it works, but worst case, you can always send the link to your computer, and then you can download it as a PDF on your computer. So it should be four PDF summaries with amazing tips that helped me a lot, and like very easy summarized. All right, so check if it opens on your phone. If not, on your computer for sure, it's going to open as a PDF. And also, if you want, someone can just put this link to the group, so everyone has it. All right. Then I hope you enjoy them as much as me. Like this, like in my 20 minutes of reading every morning, I currently read those, and I am enjoying them a lot. So maybe you enjoy it as much as me, which would actually make me happy. And so some of the things is like, enjoy the small pleasures, right? And I think this is exactly what we should do tonight, of enjoying amazing dinner together, meaningful conversations, and dancing a lot and partying a lot. Okay? So like, let's enjoy that, because that's what it's about. Thank you. Hello.